This is an audit video of a document that allegedly was published on March 21st, 2015, authored by Monty-Edwin Mueller, and Russell-J Gould. Okay, and the reason why I'm auditing this document is, well, there's a lot of reasons, but it was basically inspired by a conversation I was having with one of my students named Cody Overton. And he had some interesting questions about the correct sentence structure, communication, PARSE, syntax, grammar question. And one of the examples that he gave me was contained in this document, which I remembered this document. I first read it in 2018 and had forgotten about it. Well, this brought it to my attention, this conversation that Cody and I had, and here we are. And I'm going to show you many reasons why this document is not correct sentence structure, communication, PARSE, syntax, grammar. It's not quantum grammar. It's quantum gobbledygook. It's adverb, verb, adjective, pronoun, fiction, babble. And not only that, it could be considered fraudulent. Not only because of the grammar, but because of the way it's formatted. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. So let's just get to it. Right off the bat, what do we got here? Evidence. Vowel in front of a consonant at the beginning of a word. No contract. Particle negation. A dangling participle colon. Bonded. ED. Past tense. Particle negation and contract. Contra. Now, the title, the ship's, the vessel title, the date and all that is not contained here. It's contained at the end. We can let that go. I mean, most vessels that I see, document, contract, postal vessel, court, venues, have all that information right there at the beginning, but this one does not. So we can let that go. This is obviously a copy because of this staple. Normally it would be maritime bond with maritime ribbon, rivets, or glue, or glue. So we have the first mistake. Major mistake would be the tilde A. There's no colon in front of A. Is A a fact? Is it a fact? If facts in correct sentence structure, communication, PARSE, syntax, grammar must be, as Russell would say, prepositioned by a positional loadial phrase, what is this? It's a tilde A. What does that mean? It's not for the A. As DAVID-WYNN once said, 1 0 in a multiplication problem negates the whole thing. So far we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Anyways, and look at this. In this document, contract, federal postal station, court, venue, postal, consumer complaint. In as a positional. Folks, there are 4 positionals. 4 of, with, and by. 4 is congruent with by, of is congruent with with. 4 is cause, of is concern, i.e. consequence. With is possessive, by is authority. Where does in come in? What is in congruent with? What function does in serve? Well, in this document, in is in the cause position, but it can't be, because correct sentence structure is 1 and 1 is 1. 1 word, 1 meaning, 1 congruency, 1 function. So in must necessarily have a different congruency and different function than for, of, with, and by. So as for the function, I don't know, because it's in the cause position. So it can't be cause. So as for the congruency, what would it be? Out. So when you read it backwards, it becomes out this document, contract, blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm saying, folks? And we have another particle negation here, contra. I don't know what's going on here. There's no space between this D and this equals sign. Within. Again, there are 4 positionals, 4 of, with, and by. Within is not a positional. What would be congruent with within? What would be the function of within? Would it be of out? Would that be the congruency? I don't know. Federal postal synthesis, particle negation, ing. ing is with this federal postal synthesis claim of this Federal Postal Corporation ships channel with this nativity shipping command of corporation ships channel with this of this nativity postmaster general particle negation. So look, okay, they underline this whole thing with this straight bill. And then they also underline of this lading. That's all underlined. So that would be considered one entity. But yet they follow with this straight bill of this lading with this. So they have 2 with this together. So that is not correct. If they wouldn't have underlined of this lading, it would have been fine. Of this key with this law of this contract Federal Postal Station Court venue flag with the contract duty and knowledge by the federal judge, federal postal judge, postmaster, postmaster, bank, banker, blah, 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 blah. Jeez. Hold on, hold on. Wow. So the first claim is written with David-WYNN Miller as the authority? So this is part of what I'm saying about the formatting of the document being fraudulent. How can Russell J. Gould and Monty Mueller make a claim for David-WYNN Miller? Are they authorized to do that? I guess we're going to have to continue reading to find out, but it doesn't look like they are. And another egregious error would be this. This is all underlined, right? So from the F in federal, all of this is to be taken as one entity. But look, we have a whole slew of italics. So because italics are not on the page, and because it's underlined, this sentence ends on a hyphen, a dangling participle hyphen, if you will. And these colons are not correct, because if you have by the, then that means the colon would be tied up against a word. So the colon, instead of like here, for example, being after the ampersand, it would actually be right here tied up against the P in postal. Same thing here. Oh my goodness. These are all wrong as well. Wow. Look at this, folks. So far. Let's keep going. Why don't we? Another one in this. And in the tilde B, for the same reason stated above. another particle of negation, another spacing issue, incorrect positional again, particle of negation. Look at all this spacing. I mean, we could use some honor and grace and say that it's right and left justified because you can see it looks neat along the margin. So we'll just say that. So we wouldn't consider that as an error. But still, it should be credentialed in the styles manual for this document. Federal Postal Judge. Okay, so we got these guys that put themselves in there. So we have with this, of this, with this straight bill, again, the positionals are wrong. So I'm not going to mark them all, but if that's wrong, then the rest of them are wrong as well. That come after it by default. It would just take too much time, really, to mark up all the errors on this document. And again, here we go. Italics, not on the page. So this sentence again ends on a dang participle hyphen. And these colons are wrong as well, next to the ampersands. And they keep giving authority to David-WYNN Miller in their sentences. How is that possible if David-WYNN Miller is not the author or part of the authorship of this document? How is that possible? Did David give them permission to do that, to make claims for him? I don't think they did. For this document, contract, whatever, of this Nativity Postmaster General, Poster, Inspector. Interesting that the typeface changed. Oh, look, bill late. They don't say lading here. Why don't they say lading? That's interesting. Herein. We'll let that go. By this postmaster, and yeah, these are also wrong. Yeah, okay. So let's look at the copyright copy claim section here. What is this? Through this. What is this for this, by this? Incorrect positional sequencing. Folks, there literally are so many mistakes. And look at this. They ended on an of the. There is no authority to the copyright copy claim section, folks. So look at all these. Look. Just look. There's the first page of the Postal Shipping Channel Fixes document, audited. And I haven't even marked up all the errors, 100%. I got probably 75% of them right there for the purposes of not having this video go on too long. So the point of me doing that is to show you that there is no correct grammar on this document. There are mistakes all over it. Incorrect positional sequencing, particles and negation in the facts. No positional positioning for the tilde A, tilde B, or the tilde 0. It's just mistakes everywhere. Now, I'm not going to go through every single page, but I am going to skim through the rest of it. And you're more than welcome to do so with me until I get to the question that I mentioned at the beginning and then at the end, which is a very important piece of this audit. So you will see here, this has the registration number of 221. The last three numbers is 221, R221. This is an application form for the title of Postal Inspector. It's an application form. It's not a claim of it. It's an application form. Okay? So whoever is on this form is applying for it. Keep in mind, this is not correct sentence structure, folks. It starts with a possessive, followed by a possessive, followed by a cause, followed by I don't know what as would be. Be that as it may. We can see Russell J. Gould is on here. For the title of the charter vessel claim is for the postal inspect. Yeah, wow, this is crazy how wrong this is grammatically. So this has nothing to do with correct sentence structure. This is all adverb, verb, adjective, pronoun, quantum gobbledygook. So you see the date, it says July 12, 2000. So this is the document that he's talking about, as well as, look, he writes his name in cursive over this stamp. So here we have a document with no correct sentence structure. It's all fiction babble, quantum gobbledygook, and we have a cursive signature over the stamp, which means nothing, because cursive, just like italics, quotations, parentheses, whatever, is not on the paper. So the point of this is, in the question that I'm going to show you, this document has relevance because you see one name on here, right? Russell J. Gould. You see the name. Russell J. Gould, correct? July 12, 2000, Russell J. Gould, right? Russell J. Gould. I'm driving this point home. 221. So this supposedly is everything that Russell J. Gould hinged his claims at the Reno seminar on. Was this quantum gobbledygook document. Now let's take a look at the correct sentence structure question and then go over the rest of the document a little bit. Is for your name on the Federal Postal Synthesis claim date 13 July 2000 evidence herein with this Federal Postal Corporation ships channel 221 evidence herein by this federal judge, federal postal judge, postmaster, postmaster, banker, plenipotentiary judge, postmaster general, and postal inspector David-WYNN Miller's knowledge. So Russell is asking David. Now, he's using your, which is interesting because I don't see anything about a Dear David-WYNN Miller or this is directed towards David-WYNN Miller. There's nothing giving a clue that this is a personal thing directed at someone. Yet here we have the lodio your. So that could mean who's ever reading it, right? I guess you would have to build that guess in there, unless it was specifically directed to a person, which would have been credentialed at the beginning, but it hasn't. So does your mean me? Colon Jason Knife and Matthew colon Glass as I'm reading it, or you, the viewer? Well, of course we know that's not what it means in the fiction. That's why this is fiction. It can mean whatever you want it to mean. That's why this is not correct sentence structure, because in correct sentence structure you would be very specific about whom you are talking to or directing your sentences towards. So he's basically asking David-WYNN Miller if David's name is on that postal inspector's last number, three numbers, 221s on that document. And I just showed you that David's name is quite obviously not on there. See? 221. Russell J. Gould. No David-WYNN Miller. Interestingly enough, though, this is dated July 12th, not July 13th. So there's another grievous error. It may seem like a small error to you, but it is grievous. In the context of the domain of fact, if this is what we are to believe is happening here, this is all quantum gobbledygook. There are so many mistakes that it can't be taken seriously. Well, I wouldn't take it seriously because it has nothing to do with correct grammar, because if this was actually put on the table in front of me, I could syntax this and I know that it would have over 100 mistakes on it. Now, as David-WYNN Miller once said, and even Russell J. Gould has said this, if you see the same mistakes over and over, you have to start questioning, is this deliberate? Is this on purpose? Or is this just massive stupidity? Or is it something else? My position is, from all the evidence I've seen from both men, that neither one of them, and this is going to come as a shock to you, going by the evidence in front of us, publicly available on David's website, his old website, Russell J. Gould's public documents, his websites, I'd have to say that either he's making these mistakes on purpose or he doesn't know what he's doing with the grammar. He may know what he's doing with all the other stuff in the fiction, but with this correct grammar, he doesn't use correct grammar. Period. End of story.
Is could be a question mark. Now, how do you write a quantum sentence in a question? For the claimant's knowledge of the facts is with the claim by the claimant. Now, if you take the verb is and move it to the beginning of the sentence, is for the claimant's knowledge of the facts with the claim by the claimant. The answer is yes. The answer will always be yes when you put the verb in front of a correct written sentence.
That's false. That's false. I digress.
That's it. That's how you ask a question.
And if you
But if
want-
you're asking questions, then that means you don't have the answer. So don't ask questions, make statements. Make positive statements, make positive claims. Everything is a claim.
And that's the only part that I really felt was pertinent here, is the man himself said, don't ask questions, make claims. So as David said in the clip you just saw, you would not ask a question, because that means you don't have the answer. And to take that a little bit further, I would say this type of thing in the domain of fact is completely unnecessary, because we already have the answer to that question. Anybody who looks at that document can look at it if they have eyes to see and they have a brain that's functioning with 2 neurons firing, at least 2 or more neurons firing, that David Wynn Miller's name is not on that document. So why the hell would you need to ask the question? Are you being condescending? Are you playing games? Now the volition of the author comes into question. These are tricks that one would play in the fiction, like an attorney. Like when you see the murder trials or whatever, where you see a guy on the stand and they're showing a video, and they show a video of the guy, obviously, that's on the stand, is in the video murdering someone in front of the camera, and they turn to the camera and they're like, and you can plainly see who it is. And then the attorney turns to the guy in the stand and says, is that you in that video? And when everyone can plainly see that it is. This is pre-AI, okay? It's the same thing. What is the point of asking this question? It's a fiction tactic with a fiction mentality. Because in the domain of correct sentence structure, you would only put the facts down. If there's a damage claim, you articulate that. And that's it. And then, of course, you would do other mechanics to stop a trespass if you feel the trespass is happening. Now I'm going to go into that in a little bit. But real quick, I am going to audit this. So again, as before, there's no colon in front of this tilde1. Incorrect positional. Those errors throw this whole thing into fiction babble. The most egregious one being the number that has not been positioned as a fact. Because if you need a position loadial phrase to position a fact, and you don't have that in front of something, then that something is not a fact. There are no exceptions. Right? So this is not a correct sentence structure question. Incorrect positional sequencing and particles of negation in the fact. And it's not necessary. Why would you do that? Why would you ask this question when you already know the answer to the question and you have hard evidence to prove it? What is the point of doing this? If this is a domain of fact, which it is not. Porting fact. Cheryl Sue Marshall and Mark Allen Cobra vacates use authorization with the shipping channel 221. Casualty vacate Federal Postal Clerk Leighton Wards. This is, okay, this is very, very muddy the way this is worded. Given in the context of the document as a whole, I would have to say that Russell J. Gould and Monty Mueller are trying to kick Cheryl Sue Marshall and Mark Allen Cobra and Cobra? Is it Cobra or Corba? I seem to remember a Corba. Anyways, and Leighton Lionel Ward. They're trying to kick them out. But the way they worded it, it doesn't make sense. If Russell J. Gould is the commander and master of this vessel, construct, whatever they're talking about, then he would necessarily use words like jettison. Okay? Force, using force to jettison them from the construct. Because of a trespass, he would have to articulate a trespass that occurred first and show damage and show proof of that damage in that trespass. And then to stop the trespass, to stop the shipwreck, to stop whatever specifically happened, which would be articulated, then he would say, articulate something, to stop damage. He, as the master of the vessel, is going to jettison them, kick them out. When you use a word like it's muddy. When you use a word like vacate, it would be used in terms of in the context of a choice. But it does not sound like he's offering a choice here. He's saying it's a porting fact. It's already happened. Has it though? That's what I'm saying. Not only is there incorrect grammar, this whole thing is quantum gobbledygook, but it's very muddy. You have to really read over what is going on here to get a comprehension of it. Is for your volition of the vacancy, closure, and trickery with the use of this 221, with the usury by this 221 ship's company, David-WYNN Miller's knowledge. What in the living hell does that mean? They're asking, is David-WYNN Miller's volition to not give closure and to trick people? If a damage has occurred, if David-WYNN Miller lied to someone and there's proof of it. Number 6 is a perfect example of why you wouldn't use a correct sentence structure question. As David said, it means you don't have closure. But quite obviously, in the context of this document, Russell J. Gould does have closure on what happened here. Or he's trying to show that he does. So why would he ask a question like that? If someone was lied to, you would provide the evidence, the continuance of the evidence, show the lie one way, shape, or form, show the damage, and make a claim, and put options to deal with it, how you're going to deal with it, and that's it. This is completely unnecessary. If you already know what happened. Okay, here's another one. If you, the viewer, come up to me and just punch me in the face, am I going to get up and say, was it your volition to hurt me? Was it your volition? Was it your fist that punched me in the face? I'm just really trying to show you the ridiculousness of asking a question in the domain of fact, in the domain of correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, grammar. How unnecessary it is. You wouldn't do that because there is no room for opinion, no room for argument, only the facts. In the domain of fiction, yeah, of course, you would use things like that. That's why this is in the fiction. That's why those guys use things in the fiction like amicus curiae and all the different fiction labels that they use. They use that system. With correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, grammar, if you truly 100% have full closure on it, you don't need to do any of that. That's why I love it so much, because you whittle it down to the facts. That's it. No questions, just closure. Quantum grammar is a grammar of closure. One last thing I'm going to point out to you. In this document, I started from the beginning there, I'm scrolling down to the main document. This is the main document. Remember, this is the question we went over Still going to the original document onto page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. The name of this document is Postal Shipping Channel Fixes, dated March 21st, 2015. All the other stuff was included as evidence. Look, Russell J. Gould and David Miller have taught, when you autograph a document, authority comes at the end. That's why we end our correct sentence structure communications with by the whatever it is. By the claimant, by the claim, by the contract, whatever it is. That's the authority of the sentence. Authority always comes at the end. And it takes authority over what came before it. So this document you see has autographs and seals and dates, and that takes authority over what came before it. So Monty Edwin Mueller and Russell J. Gould are taking authorship over what has come before that. That's the only thing to be considered. But then look what we have here. We have a handwritten item 120, which this is 118, this is 119, and now we have item 120 handwritten in here. Isn't that convenient? So this, quite obviously, was created after this document was authorized. So it was already authorized, and now they added something onto it. Someone modified this document. I have a pretty good guess as who it was, don't you? This tries to drive home the point that it is forbidden to use the 221 unless you have Russell J. Gould's fingerprint on it. And this goes to the Reno seminars, and that's why I think, it's my guess, educated guess, that even though this document was created in 2015, that someone added this on in the summer of 2018 before the Reno seminars after David-WYNN Miller passed away. This was put on here to support what Russell was doing at the time in trying to bottleneck the technology to basically hoard it away from people and then eventually go into what he's doing now, or his people are doing now, where they charge $250 for one claim of the live life when David-WYNN Miller was alive. Live life claims were free. And anyone could get them at any time. And anyone could use this technology. And so this is part of the whole thing where now you only need one individual's fingerprint to have a live life claim. But in order to use this, you allegedly have to get permission to do so, which is complete and utter 100% bullshit. As I have proven to myself over and over the past 9+ years. Live life claims, you can create them yourself. You just got to learn the grammar and get 3 or more live life claim witnesses. That's it. 3 is authorization, folks. 1 is opinion. 2 is certification. 3 is authorization. David and Russell have both said you need 3 or more witnesses on a live life claim. Live life claim witnesses. And then after David passed, conveniently that changed to 1. And that was Russell. And he doesn't even need to see you. He doesn't even need to witness you. You just need to send them your social security card, fiction driving license, fiction passport, whatever it is. A bill with your name and address on it, whatever. Some fiction verification, and then he will do his little stamps, and then you pay your $250, and then you get to do whatever you do over there with those people. But that's neither here nor here or there. As far as the audit of this document goes, at the time, I gotta say, at the time, it was a little bit scary because I didn't really know what was going on in 2018 as far as this stuff goes. I wanted to stay in Russell's good graces because we were in contact. And I did stay in his good graces up until the end of 2019, the beginning of 2020. And I've told this story elsewhere. I'm not going to go into it again about what happened there. But I'm glad what happened did happen, because I'm glad I didn't get mixed up in that whole chaotic, dramatic vortex of chaos that is my perception of what goes on over there in that sector. Everybody's always arguing, yelling, kicking people out, whatever. It's just a big shit show, basically, with a bunch of shitters playing it. As the gaming community would say, a bunch of shitters in the server. Over here, it's nice and peaceful. And the only contact I have with that stuff is through this, and through conversations with students of mine who are just learning this stuff or just coming into contact with this stuff, and they have questions about these things. And so I hope this helps to clear some of those questions up. I have not gone over this document like in its entirety. That would take forever. I don't know how long this video is going to be. Suffice it to say, it's not correct grammar. It's not correct sentence structure, communication, PARSE, syntax, grammar, and that should be enough for any discerning mind to say, okay, dismiss it. Has nothing to do with learning this grammar. It's just a documentation of one viewpoint of one scenario that took place at a certain timeline, a certain point in the continuum. That's it. That's how I look at it. It's part of the story if you're interested in quantum grammar lore. And also, I wanted to show the complete uselessness of the correct sentence structure question when you're making a correct sentence structure claim. And I pre-recorded some other thoughts, which I will now play for you. My volition behind doing this audit video was to just add to the continuance of the evidence that the man you see on your screen does not use correct sentence structure, communication, PARSE, syntax, grammar in his document, contract, postal vessel court venues. I have shown this. I just showed it to you. I've shown it to you multiple times before. Now, what he does and the documents he writes, while they are not correct sentence structure, communication, PARSE, syntax, grammar, of course, they are something, right? So whatever he does and the people that follow him, I wish them all the best success that they could have with this. And hopefully they achieve what they're here to achieve. But what he does has nothing to do with me. What he's doing now, let's put it that way. I want to make it clear that nothing in that document or anything that this guy has put out there has damaged me in any way, or do I consider it or perceive it as a damage. Even if he put out a bounty on me, arrest warrant, disqualified me, whatever, slandered me, I know that I'm correct as far as the grammar goes. I know that what I use and teach on this channel is correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar. I know that there are over 1,300 free videos on this channel teaching that grammar technology. And I think that that is what has kept me safe all these years, 9+ years of doing this. I'm just showing a continuance of the evidence to my claims that Russell J. Gould does not use correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar in his documents, number one. Number two, there is no correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar claim on the copyrights to the 1x1.9 flag. I've shown this because of all the grammatical errors in the document. Number three, how can you claim to have any authority over a correct grammar technology when you yourself do not even know how to use it with correctness? It doesn't make sense. Now, I've shown you some things with the formatting of the previous document in this audit that are quite obviously kind of shady. It's not my position to judge anyone on why they do this or why they do that. I focus on the grammar. I can bring other periphery matters to the forefront, but the most important thing is the grammar. And that's what it always is. And if you want to learn this grammar, not the grammar that you saw in the video on this document, but the real deal, quote unquote, stay tuned for information on how to do that. Thanks for tuning in. As always, que sera, sera, and caveat emptor.